All right. Good morning, folks. David Shapiro here. So I've been asked by my community, and I'm happy to oblige, to cover the Genesis mission that America just launched. Now, they've used quite a bit of hyperbolic language, and I admit that I am guilty of the same. And so that hyperbolic language is comparing the American Genesis mission to Apollo program or the Manhattan Project. And of course, as most of you probably know, the Apollo program is what put us on the moon, and the Manhattan Project is what produced the first nuclear weapons. So, is the Genesis mission in that scale? Yes or no? Now, I'm not going to bury the lead. The short answer is unequivocally no. The Genesis mission is not nearly as exciting. However, that doesn't mean that it's, boring or that nothing ever happens, right? So the key thing is accelerating AI for scientific discovery. That really is kind of the bottom line and the top line of it. So when we ask ourselves, and by the way, this page is the brief of it, so I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but we have a few basic ideas as to what it's going to do. So we're basically using the Department of Energy, so the Secretary of Energy, for uniting the national laboratories, which of course America has some of the largest supercomputers and data sets across all of our various institutions, which is good. And now here's the thing, that immediately kind of rang some alarm bells for me, because I was like, the internet was literally invented to connect all of America's institutions. What are you talking about? They're already connected. And all the most powerful supercomputers and the scientific data and the brightest minds, like, that's been since the 70s. Okay, like, what's really the difference there is kind of the first thing that comes up. The next thing that it does is orders the Department of Energy to create a closed loop AI experimentation platform, whatever that means. To connect our nation's world-class supercomputers and unique data sets, which is great, but it doesn't necessarily genuinely accelerate science, because if it doesn't come with funding, which this doesn't outlay any funding, that doesn't really help. It would be better to open source those data sets, or at least make them available to more universities and for-profit companies. But one of the other things that it does is wants to generate scientific foundation models and power robotic laboratories. So one of the ideas that they tack on is that robots should be doing science. Now, this is starting more and more to sound like kind of putting the cart before the horse to me, but bear with me. Let's get through this, and then we'll unpack what's actually going to happen, or at least what I think is actually going to happen. The order then instructs the Assistant to the President for Science and Technology, the APST, to coordinate with the national initiative and integration of data and infrastructure from across the federal government. Okay, sure. Now you have a new desk job. Got it. Secretary of Energy, the APST, and the Special Advisor for AI and Crypto will collaborate with academia and private sector innovators to support and enhance Genesis mission. There you go. That's you go talk to those people, and you talk to those other people. You would be surprised how much in industry, and this goes for government and private industry, how much things don't happen just because people do not talk to each other. I swear to God. I am not kidding when I say that, like, literally half of all problems in business, you just ask people, who do you need to talk to? And then go walk over to their desk and say, you, talk to that person. So while this sounds simple, it can actually move the needle, just because people don't like talking to each other. I don't know why. Americans are supposed to be loud. Anyways, next up, priority areas focus include the greatest scientific challenges of our time that can dramatically improve our nation's national economic and health security, including biotech, critical materials, nuclear fission and fusion, space exploration, quantum information, and semiconductors and microelectronics. Okay, cool. Long story short, they want to say, okay, we've got all these resources, all these things that we've bought and paid for, these gigantic supercomputers and other data sets. Why aren't we using them? Now, one of the things that I want to point out that's missing from this is, number one, funding. Number two, building new real infrastructure. This is basically, let's use what we've got. And when you look at the boundaries of the Genesis mission, it's basically saying, what do we already own in our laboratories, and how do we basically just create a policy that directs our laboratories as to what to do? Now, while that is, it sounds more toothless and less exciting, certainly less exciting than the Apollo program, which cost 10% of GDP, and the Manhattan Project, which was ultra super secret and gathered the top minds of the day and put them on a secret base to develop one futuristic weapon. There was one outcome that they were looking for. Excuse me. So this is a little bit different. And when you look at the investment that private industry is putting towards AI, as of this year, we're north of like 1.1 trillion to 1.5 trillion dollars, and that's just 2025. By the way, this is like year zero of seeing a global effort to invent artificial superintelligence or whatever comes down the pipeline. I'm not a fan of AGI or ASI. It's a spectrum. It's not going to go from one day we're going to have AI and then the next day we're going to have AGI. There's no light switch that's going to flip. Anyways, getting off topic. So when you look at the notes not being played in this, it's like, okay, this is interesting. It is a bit of a mobilization because there's people that we already have on staff. There's resources that we already have. And that's great. And, could our gigantic supercomputers churn out new models? It's possible. But when you look at the hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA chips, okay, like maybe those data centers are not, quote, a single supercomputer, but they possess, as far as I know, more teraflops or more exaflops than our individual supercomputers do. Because the thing is like when you say like, oh, we have a supercomputer, typically it's built in much the same way that xAI's Colossus and other gigantic data centers are built, where you have stacks and stacks and stacks of networked processors. Now, old school supercomputers, which is the vast majority, are not built with accelerators. They're not built with GPUs or TPUs. It's just a bunch of CPUs. Now, this is not universally true, but when you have a GPU that's generally 100x to 1000x better at processing tensors than a CPU, those hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs will go far, far faster than the supercomputer. So even on an infrastructure or technical level, this is not necessarily the most exciting thing. Now, I have multiple friends who have done work on some of these supercomputers. I have a theoretical physicist who's done some. I have a computational fluid dynamics friend who's done some. And, they're computers, right? And some of them are aging computers, and it's basically for running very large science experiments. And you have to schedule time on those supercomputers, and you load up a simulation. And if it's not formed right, then the supercomputer admins will be grumpy with you and say, go back and come back when you've actually worked out all the bugs. So, when you compare, like, okay, what is this actually mobilizing for advancing this? Honestly, I'm going to say in terms of hardware and something that is computationally real, the supercomputers, okay, that's fine. But the unique data sets, it might actually be a little bit more interesting. And the fact that one of the things that they want, one of the outcomes, is a scientific foundation model. So one of the things that people are concerned about is like, oh, well, AI won't be able to invent new physics, or it's not gonna have a good world model. Well, if we stuff decades and decades of weather data and National Ignition Facility data, and all the data that we have from our collaborations with CERN and that sort of thing, then we're going to have a better chance of creating a physics foundation model. And then the next thing is, and this is a little bit silly, I think, because power robotic laboratories. Many laboratories are already highly robotic. If you've ever watched, the PCR machines where they have the little rows of pipettes and they're dipping into lots of little wells, like that's a robot. Now, you're probably imagining, and what they probably wanted you to imagine was, like a army of C-3POs and R2-D2s, staffing laboratories, or I don't know what. Maybe that's not what they wanted you to imagine, but that's kind of the sense that I get is like we're gonna have robot labs now, yeah. So, and that's not to say that like that's not the future. As I'm making fun of this, I'm not saying like, oh, that's never going to happen. I'm one of the people saying yes, within 3 to 5 years, we're going to have robots replacing humans in many, many jobs, and we're going to have AI models replacing humans in many, many, many jobs. That is literally the goal. So is this putting the cart before the horse? Maybe. But when you take a broader look, what you really see is that we're playing catch up, because earlier this year, China announced their AI for Science initiative. So this whole thing was basically China saying, we are going to create a unified national mission to create, artificial intelligence backed science. And that's the way that it's going to go. Also, you notice that they've included Taiwan in their, they've included Taiwan in their map of China. So, ask the Taiwanese. Anyways, this is, I don't need to get into the details because it's the same kind of program. But the point is that they did this earlier this year in 2025. This was I think February of 2025. And so we're a little bit late to the game because we're America. We should have done this last year. And so, China's just like, okay, well, we're gonna create a national mission. And then also, who else beat us is Europe. So they're calling it, Horizon Europe or Europe Horizon. So this is another area where, we have these large, in this case, a supranational entity. Although the European Union is roughly the size of America, roughly the size of China. All of these are in the same class. So Horizon Europe is the research and AI funding program. Now, this leads me to kind of one of the main points that I wanted to talk about. So when we say all right, this is a little bit disappointing if we're going to be honest, but what is it actually going to what impact is it going to have? Because it's one thing to look at the intention, it's another thing to look at the program's design, but what we really care about is what is the teleological outcome? What is the end result? Now, the primary thing that I think is the end result is this sets the national cultural norm of we should be using AI to accelerate science. I mean, it's right up here, accelerate AI for scientific discovery. Bam, there it is. And what follows after you create that cultural norm is grants. So having friends in the academic space, I can tell you, because I know that not everyone has academic friends, I can tell you that when the federal government creates, these kinds of programs, or they create priorities, that really shifts who gets money and what they get money for. And so historically what happens is there's going to be a particular methodology or a particular avenue of research that gets all the funding, all the interest, all the money, and that is kind of the soup du jour for a while. So after the mRNA vaccines were accelerated for COVID, mRNA research was enjoying, its moment in the spotlight, its 15 minutes of fame. And so anyone who had any scientific credibility whatsoever was getting funding for their mRNA research. Now, I don't know if that has dried up, but that's just one example. But what happens is, because there is a finite budget for these grants, that comes at the exclusion of other programs, other kinds of vaccines, or other biomedical research. And so what this is going to do, what I and others suspect, because I did some research and I don't know how widely believed this opinion is, but it is still an opinion out there that is not just mine, but that I independently came to this idea, is that not only are we setting the cultural norm, the social norm, that, hey, we should be using AI for science, which of course any sci-fi nerd is like, well, duh, why weren't we doing that from the outset? And the reason is because academics and university people are very, very skeptical of new technology. It's kind of ironic. We have the most powerful information technology out there, and many professors and tenured professors and whatever else are just like, oh, well, it's not useful yet, blah, 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 blah. It's just a plagiarism machine. And some people literally believe that. Now, I do have plenty of academic friends who do not believe that, who say, yes, this is really interesting technology. We just don't know how to use it properly yet. But what this does is, from the top down, it changes the tone. It says, if you want money, then you're going to use AI for scientific discovery. And so what this does is then it basically says if whatever experiment you're trying to do. Now, of course, they outline the specific areas that they want to do. So, national economic and health security, so on security issues, biotech, materials, nuclear, space, quantum, and semiconductors. So if you want grant money in these spaces, what this is going to do, what this executive order could possibly do, I don't want to say that it's going to because it could end up being completely toothless, but what it could possibly do is say, all right, if you want money as a university or a research institution or whatever it is that you're doing, or even if you want tenureship, what you need to do is you need to be using artificial intelligence in your scientific work, in your grant proposals. And that will create a new norm. So that is the most exciting part. Now, of course, in the grand scheme of things, you take a step back, it's like, wow, Dave, you really rained on our parade. It's not like we're building, the computer that's going to solve, life, the universe, and everything. We're not building a new computer. We're not building new data centers. We're not embarking on a national program to drive across the finish line to get nuclear fusion or to get superintelligence. This is more of a policy and housekeeping kind of thing. And by the way, we're also just playing catch up with China and Europe. So, hate to rain on your parade, but it is not as exciting as you probably hoped. It is interesting because it will direct the way that money flows. And of course, where money goes, results soon follow. Now, of course, I know some people say, well, not always. And of course, no, not always. Sometimes you have to learn what doesn't work, and money is needed for that as well. So with all that being said, thanks for watching. This is basically the reason that I wasn't going to make a video on it, is because I tend to only make videos on things that I find compelling or interesting, or worth talking about. And after I learned a little bit about the Genesis mission, I was like, this isn't particularly, whatever, who cares? It's not an Apollo program, and it's not a Manhattan Project. That's the bottom line. And that's probably what most of you care about. All right, over and out. Cheers.